Still I'll know that up in heaven is where we'll hear him sing again. Every little kiss you give me seems to thrill me through and through. I know that you love me by the little things you do. Let me hold you oh so closely. Tell me that you really want me. Please don't make me go away. By your side, let me always stay.
GP coming in from Melbourne, Australia, and coming in from the UK, Sabine Brignall, plus Paul Endacott, and we've got a very famous guest, and it's Mike Berry. And let me tell you, Are You Being Served is one of the greatest shows here in Australia. It's such a big hit. I don't know if you know that, Mike, but it is, and welcome to the show.
Long before I was in it, it was pretty good. But, you know, it's, yeah, it's nice. I wish I'd been over. I've never been to Australia. I've been to New Zealand. And I don't know if that's a swear word in Australia, but anyway, I've been to New Zealand, but I haven't been to Australia.
You know, you put out these great songs in 1963 with Joe Meek producing them. I mean, there's a famous person there. And
Absolutely.
I just want to say you're a rock and roll legend. You know, that's what I want to tell you. And Sabina's got all your records there. Come on, Sabine. Yeah. Have a look at these.
You want to get some taste.
Listen, Mike, I got another one yesterday. I got the, you know, the sunshine of your. I got that one yesterday. I mean, what a chance was that of buying that yesterday? Honestly,
quite good. It sold about 1 million records.
And you signed, you know, all these for me at the event at the 1Q Road, didn't you? So. The album.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I surely did. Yeah. Now, listen, I've got to brush my bonnet. I've only just got out of the shower.
Oh.
That's why I was all at 6s and 7s. Anyway, you can't see the joint, can you?
No, you look great. Now, listen, can you tell me what happened? You've supported the Beatles. Tell me a bit about the Beatles. Let's go back into your history.
Well, the Beatles, I met the Beatles. In fact, I worked with them at the Cavern. In 1961, I think it was. I had a hit record over here called A Tribute to Buddy Holly, which is one of these death records that Joe Meek produced, as you mentioned. And I was invited up to play the Cavern by Brian Epstein. And obviously in his mind to introduce me to the Beatles, because he figured being from London, I might have some influence to get them a deal. I mean, if I'd have realised what an amazing talent they were, and I didn't even then, I would have been only too pleased to help. But I had no influence at all. Well, that was just Brian Epstein's naivety, thinking just because I'd had a hit record and I'd done one television, he thought I had influence. I knew nobody. You know, it was the blokes in the suits and it was the pop singers. That was the dividing line. It was only when you got to the group scene that it expanded and all the bands were involved as well. So anyway, there you go. That's how I met the Beatles, and we were good mates. Paul McCartney gave me a lift home in his car, and as Paul reminded me the other day, this is our Paul, that is, I did a show with the Beatles in
1962 at Preston Town Hall.
There you go. You see, this is my manager. Yep. And I was top of the bill. We were top of the bill. Mike Berry and the Outlaws. And in the Outlaws was Chaz Hodges of Chaz and Dave. I don't know if you know Chaz and Dave.
Yeah, Chaz and Dave are biggie. They're the ones that did that song for that TV show.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well, anyway, Chaz was in the band with me at the time we topped the bill with the Beatles, and he was also at the Cavern, in the old original Cavern, that is, when all the other bands were on there, and we were up there as big stars from London, big stars, twinkle effing twinkle. But we had a one hit and a one television. But anyway, we were okay. We were a good band. That's the main thing.
Did you think they were going to go and become big stars back then? Did you see potential in them?
The trouble is, you see, I never actually played with them at the Cavern. They came along to meet me, but they weren't booked in there. I think they just come back from Hamburg, and so I didn't really hear them to know how good they were. I remember we were invited back to Brian Epstein's flat. Chaz Hodges and guitarist Kenny and I, three of us were invited back to Brian Epstein's flat to listen to a tape, an old reel-to-reel tape of the Beatles. I think it was probably recorded in Hamburg, but because it was terrible quality. But the one thing that Chaz and I both picked up on was the harmonies. And I think that was to do with John Lennon had a good, strong, lower voice, but it was still pretty high. But McCartney was right up there where the money is, right up the top, you know, and a great sound to his voice. And that's what we picked up on. But we still didn't, they weren't writing it even then. They were, but they weren't actually performing any of their songs, or very few. So, and they'd not recorded anything because they didn't have a deal, which was sacrilege, really, for a band of that talent, you know. But anyway, they were great guys. Say, Paul gave me a lift home in his car from the Cavern, and I think again it was probably Brian Epstein gave him a nudge, said, look after Mike, because he might get you on the telly.
Hey, can I ask you, was he driving an Anglia car, a Ford Anglia?
No, he was driving, it was, hang on a minute, Capri. It was a Ford, the first Ford Capri. It had a boot that would take another car almost. It was a massive boot on it, and because it made it very bad. If you put a load in the boot, you could always, the wheels were almost off the ground. But that was Paul's car, maroon colour it was, dark red, you know. And he gave me a lift back to my salubrious hotel, which was about 12 and 6 a night, and worth about half as much.
I just want to focus just for a second right on Joe Meek, because you're the only person I know that actually was produced by Joe Meek, and this documentary that they made on him, this DVD, is actually fantastic. And I've got to say, to do that song Telstar, right? And for it to be like a number one already, this guy was a pioneer. And I listened to your songs, what you recorded with him. And to tell you the truth, back there in 63, your songs are amazing because they got that amazing sound from Joe Meek. So what I'm trying to say is that is something that's a very sophisticated sound. It doesn't matter what people think, but for 63, it was way out there in front. But can you tell me this? From that movie that they did about Joe Meek, and he shot himself and all that, and he was uptight and getting upset, and, you know, was that really like the Joe Meek that you knew?
Not really, no, because Joe Meek was a very shy man. He was very quiet. He was a nice guy, actually. His big problem was he was gay at a time when you could get arrested. And he did. He actually went to the public lavatory. They used to have lavatories in the street, men's urinals in the street. And that's where gay people would meet up, men, obviously. And he went down there to try and get himself a pal. And he was caught by the police. Because they used to put coppers in there to catch the homosexuals. It's a nasty trick, but there you go. That was the time. And so I think that affected Joe's life a terrific amount. But apart from that, he was a nice guy. He meant well. He was very defensive and protective of his artists. He had a couple of major faults, though. One was he never paid anybody. And two, if you asked him for your money, you're lucky if you got out of that office with your life, because our guitarist, Bill Carr, who played on Tribute to Buddy Holly and stuff of mine, he asked, he said, "Here, Joe," he said, "where's my royalties?" Because he knew he must have earned some. And Joe said, "You and your effing royalty," he said, and he threw a pair of scissors at Bill, which sort of flew past him and stuck in the door frame. And Clem Catini, same thing, the drummer with the Tornadoes, he asked for money, and Joe threw this massive tape recorder after him down the stairs, and it went through a plate glass window. Joe was, when he lost his rag, run for cover. Because he had
how did you all survive, though? I mean, financial. I mean, you know, how do you all manage, you know, day-to-day, week-to-week living costs? I mean, how do you, you know, get fed? And you know, this is a common story.
Who, Joe or us?
Yeah, well, yeah, all of the artists who don't get paid.
Well, I lived at home with my nan, so I was all right, Jack. And we were, as a band, we were touring and doing gigs and stuff. And so we were earning a few quid. We didn't earn much, didn't need much. But with Joe, I mean, he was being financed, so he had no problem with money. And besides which, he never paid anybody. So he wouldn't have, would he? I mean, I had a couple of hit records with him, 3, in fact, at the time. Never got a bean, not a bean. And I was only on about 2% anyway, if that. So 98% went somewhere, and I didn't get it.
When you performed in front of the girls, did they go crazy for you?
Oh, I see. Sorry, I thought you said guilt.
Yeah. What you're asking.
Yeah, no, you did. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember touring with the Stones.
Tell us about that.
But the Stones more so. I did about four-week tours with the Stones in the 60s, 63, 4. And you didn't have to do anything, really. You could walk on sweeping the stage and they'd have torn your clothes off because the Rolling Stones were on. They were so excited about the Rolling Stones. Unbelievable. We had 2 number-1 artists topping the bill, Mike Sarn and John Layton. They both had number-1 records in the UK. And Robert Stigwood, our manager, he put them at the top of the bill, and the Rolling Stones were in the second half, or if that. I think it might have, yeah. And anyway, but they were within about 2 or 3 performances. The kids made the promoters change the bill so the Rolling Stones closed the show, because they couldn't. The other artists, if the Stones had been on, they wouldn't let them just stay off. They'd scream and shout all through the other acts, so they couldn't do anything. So what they'd do, put the Rolling Stones at the end, who probably did a longer set as well. But and then the other artists went on beforehand. So the kids put up with the other singers, me and the other lot. But I think I was a better singer than the other 2, which wasn't difficult. But they, as far as the Rolling Stones were concerned, even they didn't know what they had. I mean, Mick Jagger says to me on one of these tours, he said, "Here, Mike," he said, "how'd you get them high notes?" And I said, "I don't know, Mick." I said, "I just sing. I've just got," I said, "a bit of Welsh in me. I've got a bit of a voice." And he said, "No," because what he didn't realise, he didn't want to change what he had because it was already magic. He just had it, and that was it. And as did the band. I mean, they were really fine to hone to perfection, and so he just didn't realize what he had. And then when it started to, they were screaming, and then it started to go, the penny started to drop. But because Brian Jones was a very big factor in the Stones in the early days, because you know he died in a swimming pool. But the girls loved him because he was a pretty boy, and he was very smart, and he was very sort of smooth and all that. And he's a good musician too. He played some good stuff, good harmonica and guitar. And so he was a bit of competition for Mick, but Mick was out on his own, really. You've seen him now in the States. I mean, if it wasn't for him, they couldn't go out touring as the Rolling Stones. It wouldn't mean anything.
Well, they've been at Twickenham Stadium about 4 times, just down the road from me. We've got the rugby stadium, and the Stones have been there, you know. And
there you go. You see, don't have to show off.
Like you, it's all about preserving this legacy, packaging it, and promoting it to an audience future generations want to hear all about this. It's
part of history.
Well, it's also the kids will need to go through austerity, as Mike did in the early days. The 50s and 60s was all about coming out of austerity. And I think the kids of today are going to find it very difficult with the world problems that there are. So getting some inspiration from the guys that started bands. If they couldn't play an instrument, they'd get on the skiffle. If they could, they'd form a band. Fashion shops started because when kids came out of austerity, they were rebuilding London after the Blitz. They became consumers. What did they consume? Fashion and music. That's where all the fashion labels, Mary Quant, started springing up.
Yeah.
So that sort of inspiration, I think, is invaluable for the kids of today and tomorrow. And what I'm doing with Music Heritage London is connecting with the likes of Mike, who have got fantastic stories to tell, and I'm packaging it and promoting it to a global audience with events and tours, etc., that are immersive, that take you back to the halcyon years of the 60s. So that's really what I'm doing, in a similar way that you are, Plastic.
But I've got to say, with your tours and what you do, and you focus, let's say, on different artists, and the artists come down and help you do tours, I mean, that's amazing. And during COVID, you were doing tours that were on Zoom, another amazing thing that was happening that was groundbreaking. So you've got to understand something, Paul. You're at the forefront of the technology to get out there. And as I said, with all these great artists supporting you, like Mike Berry, like everybody that you've had on, even the drummer for the
Kinks.
Keith, you've had everybody. Just go through who's gone through tours with you.
Well, in the last 3-4 years, we've had Kenny Jones, Brian Bennett and Bruce Welch from the Shadows, Mick Avery, Steve Hackett from Genesis, Mr. Berry. That's not Chuck Berry, that's Mr. Mike Berry. They're all coming out to support us. And last Sunday, we put the gig on at the old Station Hotel, which is the birthplace of the Rolling Stones, as far as I'm concerned. That's where they got their first break. If they were born in Richmond, they were certainly conceived at the Ealing Club. We've got so many venues around West London. And Liverpool have done a great job with their music tourism, but they've got the Cavern Club. We've got, the Royal Albert Hall, the Troubadour, the Ealing Club, the Station Hotel, the Richmond Jazz and Blues Festival locations.
Eel Pie Island.
Huh?
Eel Pie Island.
And there's not a lot left of Eel Pie Island other than the plaques and things, but it is immense. So the music heritage, and even people that have lived in Richmond for 40 years don't really know the content, the immense amount of music heritage that we have here. And Mike only lives down in Kingston, so we're neighbours. So Mike and I have been on a few shows now, been on exhibitions where we talk to the assembled travel trade, because group travel, bringing people out from all around the world to speak with Mike, is something that is, it's quite unique in London. Yeah. We did a tour recently, a Kinks tour up in Muswell Hill, and I secretly phoned up Mick Avery and said, could you ring me at 1:00, knowing that that's when the four Kinks fans were doing their tour. So Mick rang me at 1:00 and I put it through the loudspeaker of the minibus. And I said, hello? And he says, is that Paul? I said, yeah, who's that? And he says, Mick Avery here. And I looked in the rear view mirror and these guys went, and they carried on talking to Mick Avery for 10-15 minutes and they were just blown away. What other guided tours, music tours in London, anywhere, has the interaction and the authenticity of having the music legends coming on themselves and talking to their fan base?
Exactly, Paul. Now I want you to tell everybody the links, right, where they can find you on the net with all your tours and what you're doing. If you can do that now, please.
60s bus.london. And the other link would be musicheritage.london.
That's great. Now, I just want to thank everybody for the being on the show. Yourself, Mike. I'm a big fan of yours. And I just want to say thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sabine. Keep watching Plastic EP Live TV because it doesn't get any better than this. Thank you, everyone.
Nice to meet you, Plastic. Take care.
A pleasure.
Thanks so much.
I'll see you in Australia.
Yeah, Melbourne. I'll take you out for lunch.